Delivery Malaysian 370, good morning.
Malaysian 370 standby and Malaysian 6 is cleared to Frankfurt via Agosa Alpha departure 6000 feet squawk 2106.
At 12:41 a.m. on March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 takes off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport for a non-stop daily flight to Beijing, China. A routine flight for 53-year-old pilot Zahari Ahmad Shah and his 27-year-old co-pilot Farid Hamid. Not long into the flight, when the plane's flying over the South China Sea and adjacent to the Gulf of Thailand, the Kuala Lumpur flight controller says goodnight with no indication that anything is wrong.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9, good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
However, that will be the last anyone outside the plane heard, as approximately 41 minutes into the scheduled 9-hour and 40-minute flight time, Flight 370 disappeared from all radar screens in Ho Chi Minh City, Bangkok, and Kuala Lumpur. The way a plane is tracked is through a pair of transponders located inside the cockpit. Most, if not all, airlines have two transponders running in tandem in case one of them ceases to function, and therefore never losing track of the $320 million aircraft, along with all possible 239 people on board. So the idea of a plane simply vanishing off all radar screens means one of two things. One being both transponders cease to function at the same time, in which case you're more likely to win the lottery, or, more likely, they were manually deactivated by somebody on board. Any attempt to contact those on board went unanswered, and any attempt to locate the aircraft was futile. Flight 370 is now in the wind.
Malaysian 370, good morning. 21, requesting push and start. Good morning, push back and start, push runway 3 to right, exit via Sierra 4.
After not arriving in Beijing almost 4 hours after the flight disappeared, what is now known as the largest and most expensive aircraft rescue mission was about to commence, costing roughly $151 million for those of you wondering. The initial search, headed by Malaysian authorities, primarily focused on the last known whereabouts of the missing plane between the South China Sea and the Gulf of Thailand. However, that would soon be changed when the Malaysian military disclosed information that had the possibility to find the missing plane. The Malaysian military revealed that they use a different kind of radar that doesn't rely on transponders. Rather, it uses reflectance to track the position of aerial targets. A simpler way of putting it is that the Malaysian government has satellites with cameras that measure how reflective a certain points in the camera's view are. Once a spot gets past a certain level of reflectivity, it's classified as an aircraft, and then the satellite sends the data back down to a satellite dish where the data is constantly being monitored. You know what, that's not as simple as I want it to be. Anyways, the data from the military satellite revealed that Flight 370 altered its flight path with a quick and slight turn to the right, followed by a prolonged turn to the left. The plane was then piloted back across the Malaysian peninsula and then made one final right turn across the island of Penang, before then dropping off the military's radar as well. Over the next several days, the Bay of Bengal, Strait of Malacca, and Andaman Sea were now being searched by multinational ships and planes, as now the last known location was in international waters. This search would also prove to be in vain, as it would also come up empty-handed. During this time, another investigation was taking place, but this one was into the plane's SATCOM, or Satellite Communications Terminal. Like all modern aircrafts, Flight 370 was not only equipped with a pair of transponders, but also a SATCOM. The way a SATCOM works is by sending and receiving transmissions from the plane to the satellite and then to the ground, or vice versa. Before departure, Flight 370's SATCOM had established a connection with a terminal in Perth, Australia. That station, as it should have, kept a detailed record of all incoming and outgoing traffic between it and Flight 370's SATCOM. What the Perth record showed is that before the plane's U-turn, everything appeared normal. However, after the turn near the island of Penang, the SATCOM link was disconnected as well. But, after roughly 3 minutes of no contact, Flight 370's SATCOM requested to log back onto the network. When the connection was re-established, the flight remained quiet for a total of 6 hours when it was presumed to have crashed due to fuel exhaustion. The plane responded to 5 distinct status requests. What that means is if a plane is not heard from in over an hour, the ground station will automatically send a signal through the satellite to make sure the plane's terminal was still online and functional. During the plane's final 2 hours aloft, 2 separate attempts to contact the plane via sat phone were made. Both calls were recognized, and then connected, and then subsequently routed through to the cockpit, but they were never answered. Going back to the status requests, public investigators soon realized that they could measure how far 370 was based on how long the signal took to get from the plane to reach the satellite. This discovery yielded 7 possible rings in which the signals could have originated. By taking speed, an amount of fuel, and a myriad of other factors including flight path analysis, this gave investigators the most likely area of the last transmission, which was along an arc on the 7th most ring in the southern Indian Ocean. The plane's last known location now fell into the jurisdiction of Australia. Over the coming weeks and eventual months, the search was ratified accordingly to fit with simulations of oceanic drift. Some parts of the new search area were so remote, it took almost a full week just to get there. Over the following weeks, Australian authorities searched over 4.5 million square kilometers, or 2,796,170 square miles of ocean for my American listeners. Even with all of this ground covered, Flight 370 was still nowhere to be found. I hope you guys all enjoyed my first episode of Into Thin Air. I've worked really hard on it, and I hope you guys are going to enjoy the rest of the season. This episode was shorter just to make sure people would still be interested in this sort of podcast. The next episode will be out on February 9th at 4 p.m. Eastern, and we'll cover the official theories as to where Flight 370 could have been, and we'll also cover the following investigations.